my name is Yair, and this is OverSier. OverSier is an all-in-one tool for dynamic malware analysis. OverSier automates your analysis tools, has a local event manager, has anomaly detection capabilities, and can cross-examine different logs from different programs. This is an example of real dynamic malware analysis. You usually have a lot of programs that pollute your screen and make it hard for you to navigate around and find what you need. Additionally, opening all these programs and configuring them correctly usually leads to mistakes, and you often need to revert to a previous snapshot and start all over again. This is where OverSier's automation comes to help. The automation feature, using models, allows the user to configure everything beforehand in one organized place. Let's see it in action. This is OverSier running inside a virtual machine. Here we can see the programs that are configured to run. In this case, T-Shark and Procmon. Let's set Wireshark's capture interface. Additionally, programs that don't have logging support yet can be set to run automatically. For example, let's make Notepad run every time we run OverSier. We copy its path here and add arguments if needed. You can also choose whether the program should remain or exit once OverSier stops. You can now see all of that in action. As you can see, our programs start minimized, and some data began already flowing in. Some programs' logs would be available only after the program itself saves the data and exits, and Procmon is a good example. Now, once OverSier stopped, all the data is available. We can also open the logs folder, and all the data is there. It's saved under a folder named after the current date and time. Lastly, we have some programs that you don't even want to see while a scan runs. Programs like Regshot could be completely hidden and managed by OverSier, since no interaction with the UI is actually needed, and all we need is to see the data in the end. Next, OverSier functions as a local security event manager. It contains all the logs and has all the basic functionality you expect from a SIEM. Also, OverSier is self-contained, so you don't need to get the logs out of the machine and risk having communications with the infected virtual machine. The basic functionality you expect from a SIEM exists here. You can highlight specific conditions or filter stuff out altogether. If OverSier lacks some feature, you can click on the Open in Native Program button and it will open with data already loaded. For the next two big features, we're going to analyze a real malware. You can learn more about it by going to the video's description and opening its GitHub page. If you don't want to go through the code itself, the repository contains a video with a demonstration. But for this video, it's enough to know that when we ran the malware, a PowerShell window popped up, and after some time, a new exe file appeared on our disk and ran. When scanning the file, I used OverSier to automate the process, so I can just import the folder with the logs. Let's now move to the interesting features. Since OverSier is targeted towards analyzing malware, it has some anomaly detection capabilities that should help the investigator get more out of their data. For example, unique pair can be used to find files that are malware accessed and only are malware. You can use this feature to see which DLLs only are malware loaded, or files that are malware written into. First, let's filter our view in order to see only the malware. Now, let's set an anomaly detector. We give it the malware's PID as a suspect, set a visible color, and tell it that we want to see unique values under the path column. Also, let's add a filter that will show only the write file operations. If we would go through the logs right now, we could see some events highlighted in red. But for now, we want to see only the anomalies, so let's check this box. We can see that the malware has written into some kind of file. This is the first indicator that will help us later to understand how the exe file appeared in our station. When using detectors, keep in mind that on one hand they are complex and offer a lot of customizability. For example, the repeated action detector has a lot of parameters to play with. But on the other hand, it's broad enough to be used in more than one way. Last thing to keep in mind is that you can save detectors and load them from files, allowing you to keep working and helpful detectors for different malware, and even share your detectors with others. This detector can detect a repeated action from this suspect IP. When the protocol is UDP, the event appears 5 times in a time frame of 400 milliseconds. Before talking about the next feature, let's look at this problem. Investigators usually struggle with crossing data from different logs. As you can see on the right side, Procmon shows the time of day, while on the other side, Wireshark shows the relative time from its start. Additionally, in this screenshot, less than a second passed on the right side, while on the other, almost 3 seconds are showed at once. Let's go back to our malware. Now that we know it written something to the disk, but we don't know where it came from, we can use OverSier's last week feature, Cross-Examine. Cross-Examine allows you to cross data, and still offers all of OverSier's features. Before we can cross the logs, we have to fix T-Shark's relative time issue. Sometimes, when using VMs, the time of the machine isn't set correctly, and it causes some trouble with the tools, so let's fix that. Now that the data is displayed correctly, let's cross it in a new tab. On the left side, we have the network communications, and on the right side, we would see Procmon's disk operations. Since we don't want to see all of the data, I'll start by setting a time frame, from the first write to the file to 10 seconds ahead. I will also filter out the irrelevant data. Now that only the interesting data is displayed, let's see what we can find. First, we can see that our station contacted some fake DNS station and asks for the page 1.checkupdates.microsoft.com, which doesn't really exist. After this request, we can see a single packet fragmented into a lot of data packets. Once the packet arrives, we can see that the malware immediately writes data to the disk. Right after it finishes, our victim station asks for 2.checkupdates.microsoft.com, and the whole process repeats itself. In conclusion, this tells us that our malware writes a file to the disk, and the data of the file itself is sent through DNS tunneling. In conclusion, we saw how OverSier helps you automate the investigation, has some local SIEM functionalities, has anomaly detection features, and can cross and correlate data from different programs. If you have questions or ideas you want to share, please leave them in the comments. Thank you.